The gut tube is formed from endoderm lining the yolk sac, which is enveloped by the developing coelom as a result of cranial and caudal folding. The primitive gut is subdivided into four: pharyngeal gut, foregut, midgut, and hindgut. Craniocaudal and lateral folding cause the opening of the gut tube to the yolk sac to draw closed, forming a pocket toward the head end of the embryo, called the anterior or cranial intestinal portal, and a posterior or caudal intestinal portal toward the tail of the embryo. These are the future foregut and hindgut, respectively. The midgut remains open to the yolk sac. Further folding and growth of the embryo causes the communication of the gut with the yolk sac to continue to get smaller, and the regions of the gut to become further refined. Derivatives of the foregut includes trachea and respiratory tract, lungs, esophagus, stomach, liver, gallbladder and bile ducts, pancreas, dorsal and ventral, upper duodenum. Derivatives of the midgut includes lower duodenum, jejunum, ileum, cecum, appendix, ascending colon and proximal 2/3 of the transverse colon. Derivatives of the hindgut includes the distal 1/3 of the transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, upper anal canal, urogenital sinus. Foregut derivatives in the abdomen are supplied by branches of the celiac artery. Midgut derivatives are supplied by branches of the superior mesenteric artery, and hindgut derivatives are supplied by the inferior mesenteric artery. As the gut tube develops, the endoderm proliferates rapidly and actually temporarily occludes the lumen of the tube around the 5th week. Growth and expansion of mesoderm components in the wall, coupled with apoptosis of some of the endoderm at around the 7th week, causes recanalization of the tube such that, by the 9th week, the lumen is open again. This occlusion and recanalization process occurs throughout the esophagus to anus, and errors in this process can occur in anywhere along the tube, resulting in stenosis, that is narrowing of the lumen, or even outright occlusion in that region. The stomach and liver are suspended in a mesentery that is attached to the dorsal and ventral body walls. The dorsal mesentery of the stomach becomes the greater omentum. The mesentery between the stomach and liver becomes the lesser omentum. The ventral mesentery is made up of the lesser omentum and the falciform ligament. The ventral mesentery of the liver becomes the falciform ligament. The free margin of the falciform ligament contains the umbilical vein, which is obliterated after birth to become the ligamentum teres of the liver. The rest of the GI tract is suspended by a dorsal mesentery, named according to the organ to which it is attached: mesoduodenum, mesoappendix, mesocolon. The region of the foregut just caudal to the pharynx develops two longitudinal ridges called the tracheoesophageal folds that divide the tube ventrally into the trachea and subsequent lung buds, and dorsally into the esophagus. As with the rest of the gut tube, the lumen of the esophagus becomes temporarily occluded around the 5th week of development and recanalizes by around the 9th week. Clinical correlates of the esophagus includes: firstly, esophageal atresia, which occurs when the tracheoesophageal ridges deviate too far dorsally, causing the upper esophagus to end as a closed tube. Usually it is accompanied by a tracheoesophageal fistula, in which case, gut contents can be aspirated into the lungs after birth, causing inflammation, pneumonitis, or even infection, pneumonia. It is typically associated with polyhydramnios prenatally, where the fetus cannot swallow amniotic fluid and it accumulates in the amniotic cavity. Secondly, esophageal stenosis occurs when the esophagus fails to recanalize, also typically associated with polyhydramnios prenatally. Postnatally, the child will regurgitate immediately upon feeding. Thirdly, congenital hiatal hernia, which occurs when the esophagus fails to grow adequately in length. As a result, the esophagus is too short, therefore pulls the stomach into the esophageal hiatus in the diaphragm. The stomach appears first as a fusiform dilation of the foregut endoderm, which undergoes a 90 rotation, such that the left side moves ventrally and the right side moves dorsally. The vagus nerves follow this rotation, which is how the left vagus becomes anterior and the right vagus becomes posterior. Differential growth on the left and right sides establishes the greater and lesser curvatures, respectively. Craniocaudal rotation tips the pylorus superiorly. Dorsal and ventral mesenteries of the stomach are retained to become the greater and lesser omenta, respectively. Rotation of the stomach around its longitudinal axis pulls the dorsal mesogastrium to the left, creating a space behind the stomach called the omental bursa. As this process continues, the spleen appears as a mesodermal proliferation between the two leaves of dorsal mesogastrium. The spleen is connected to the body wall by the lienorenal ligament in the region of the kidney. The spleen is connected to the stomach by the gastrolenal ligament. The free margin of the lesser omentum connecting the duodenum and the liver, hepatoduodenal ligament, contains the portal triad, which includes bile ducts, portal vein and hepatic artery. The free margin also forms the roof of epiploic foramen of Winslow, which is the opening connecting the omental bursa with the rest of the peritoneal cavity. Clinical correlates of the stomach includes hypertrophic pyloric stenosis. It occurs due to overproliferation or hypertrophy of the smooth muscle of the pyloric sphincter. It is associated clinically with forceful or projectile, non-bilious vomiting shortly after feeding, because the hypertrophic sphincter prevents gastric emptying into the duodenum. The liver bud arises as an outgrowth of the endodermal epithelium, the distal end of the foregut, and consists of rapidly proliferating cells that penetrate the septum transversum. The parenchyma of the liver intercalates within the tissue of the septum transversum and the plexus of vitellin and umbilical veins, accounting for the overall architecture observed in the adult, which are endodermally derived. The weight of the liver is approximately 10% of the total body weight. At 10th week intrauterine life, while at birth, it is approximately 5%. At 12th week intrauterine life, bile is formed by hepatic cells. The pancreas's endodermal lining of the foregut forms two buds caudal to the forming liver, the ventral pancreatic bud and the dorsal pancreatic bud. The dorsal pancreatic bud is in the dorsal mesentery, while the ventral pancreatic bud is close to bile duct. Following rotation of the duodenum, the ventral pancreatic bud lies below and behind the dorsal pancreatic bud. Later, there is fusion of both the ventral and dorsal pancreatic buds. The ventral bud forms the uncinate process and inferior part of the head of pancreas. The rest of the pancreas is derived from the dorsal bud. The main pancreatic duct of Wirsing is formed by the distal part of the dorsal pancreatic duct and the entire pancreatic duct. The main pancreatic duct, together with bile duct, enters the duodenum at the site of the major papilla. Clinical correlates of the pancreas includes errors in the fusion process, which can result in an annular pancreas that wraps around the duodenum, causing obstruction. Accessory pancreatic tissue dot failure of the fusion of pancreatic duct system. The duodenum arises from terminal part of foregut and cephalic part of midgut. The arterial supply is by both celiac and superior mesenteric arteries. The junction of the two parts is distal to the origin of the liver bud. Following rotation of the stomach and rapid growth of the head of the pancreas, the duodenum is moved from being a midline structure to the right side. Proximal duodenum, which arises from the caudalmost part of the foregut, is served by anterior and posterior branches of the superior pancreatic duodenal artery, which is a branch of the celiac artery. With rotation of the gut tube, the duodenum and pancreas are pushed up against the body wall and become secondarily retroperitoneal. However, a small portion of the duodenal cap remains intraperitoneal. The upper loop of the midgut contains what will be duodenum distal to the entrance of the bile duct, jejunum, and upper part of the ileum. The lower or caudal loop contains what will be the lower ileum, cecum, appendix, ascending colon, and proximal 2/3 of the transverse colon. The appendix can be seen as a diverticulum that is initially pointed downward or toward the tail. The gut tube undergoes a primary rotation of 90 degrees counterclockwise. Physiological herniation occurs at 6th week. At 10th week, it enters into the abdominal cavity. Failure to pull all of the gut contents back into the abdominal cavity, or to completely close off the ventral body wall at the umbilicus, can result in an omphalocole or gastroschisis, where the gut contents herniate out of the body wall. Defects and variations in rotation can cause a variety of aberrant anatomical positions of the viscera that are often asymptomatic, but important to appreciate when trying to diagnose and/or treat gastrointestinal problems, example appendicitis. Malrotation can also cause twisting or volvulus of the gut tube, resulting in stenosis and/or ischemia. Derivatives of the hindgut includes the distal 1/3 of the transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and upper anal canal. Terminal end of the hindgut ends in the posterior region of an endodermal lined pouch called the cloaca. The formation of a urethral septum divides the cloaca ventrally into urogenital sinus and dorsally into the rectal canal. Urogenital sinus contributes to the lower urogenital tract, which includes the bladder except the trigone, urethra, and vagina in the female. The boundary between the endoderm and ectoderm forms the cloacal membrane. Rectal canal forms the rectum and upper anal canal. The urethral septum develops into the perineal body. The portion of the cloaca where the hindgut endoderm is up against the ectoderm of the skin breaks down to allow the formation of the anus. Caudal part of the anal canal, which is ectodermal in origin, is supplied by the inferior rectal artery, which is a branch of internal caudal artery, while the cranial portion of the anal canal is supplied by the superior rectal artery, which is a branch of inferior mesenteric artery. Failure of the cloacal membrane to break down can result in an imperforate anus. Failure to generate enough mesoderm during gastrulation can result in anal atresia, in which there is insufficient development of the wall of the rectal canal. Failures in the division of the cloaca can lead to a variety of aberrant connections of the rectal canal to portions of the urogenital tract, such as urrectal or rectovaginal fistula. Failure of neural crest cells to migrate and/or differentiate into neurons in a portion of gut will result in an aganglionic segment. The main function of these ganglia is to allow local relaxation in the wall of the gut tube, so the aganglionic segment is tonically contracted, leading to obstruction. The distal portions of the colon are most susceptible to this problem, leading to a condition known as Hirschsprung disease or congenital megacolon. The affected individuals often present with a very distended abdomen due to the presence of an aganglionic segment of the colon, usually in the sigmoid colon, that causes a blockage. In summary, the gut system extends from the oropharyngeal membrane to the cloacal membrane and is divided into pharyngeal gut, foregut, midgut, and hindgut, with each of them giving rise to some structures. The arterial supply is from the celiac, superior and inferior mesenteric arteries.
If you found this helpful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.